Welcome to 365 Ujima. Here we know that community is not an abstract idea. It's who brings the meal, who drives you to your appointment, who checks on your children, who prays when the diagnosis comes, who stays. Ujima means collective work and collective responsibility. It is the understanding that none of us are meant to carry life alone. Each month we'll gather in 4 ways. On the block, we'll witness neighbors building care systems that rarely make the headlines. On the future, young voices will tell us what health, safety, and belonging looks like in their world. On the legacy, elders will offer memory as infrastructure and wisdom as blueprints. And on the porch, we will sit together and name what all of it means. We will ask what responsibility this moment places on us. We will also speak honestly about health disparities in Black communities, about prevention, about screenings, and about resources, not with fear, but with power, because information shared is power multiplied. This podcast is not about perfection. Oh no, it's about participation. It is about remembering that care is not just personal, it is collective. And when community becomes care, care becomes our power. This is 365 Ujima. Let's begin. Welcome, everyone. March is Women's History Month. And so this month we're exploring women as collective care architects. And we are in our segment known as This is the Legacy. And so during the legacy segment, what we do is we ask a woman from the community who is seasoned and mature, who has that wisdom that the scriptures talk about, because I'm a woman of faith, and so I tend to center things around the scriptures. But whatever your faith system is, right, typically we know that the women who have been here for a minute, that they are vessels of wisdom, and they hold knowledge and just creativity that we need to be able to tap into. And so today, we are blessed to be able to have Ruthie Evans with us, who is going to be giving us her thoughts as a mature woman, as a senior, as an elder woman. And then we've also got Ebony Evans, who is her daughter, who we are going to be sitting at her feet, y'all. We're going to be asking a few questions. Every now and then you might hear some amens. But Miss Ruthie, our first question to you is that how do women handle illnesses when resources are scarce? Because we live in what is known as a medically underserved area. And we know from our interactions with you that you have had to work through the medical system for yourself and also for your husband, and then for people that you care for. But how do women handle illness when resources are rare or scarce? My apologies.
Yeah. So, first of all, thank you for having me on, Dr. Van Hoos. It is my pleasure. So historically, and I'm going to go back as far as the biblical days, when women were the carriers or the nurturers of sickness and illnesses that occurred. Even as when Jesus was in the tomb, it was the woman that rushed to the tomb to bring nurturement to the body, and to garnish his body, and so and it goes. It's always been the pattern of the woman to handle, you know, disparities of illnesses. So historically, we handled illnesses with creativity, with resilience, and shared responsibility. When resources were scarce, what women would do was lean in and help each other. They shared knowledge about healing, herbal remedies, caring techniques that that we felt like would be a vital resource for, without you having to go and pay for the expenses of going to the doctor, because financially wise, we just didn't go to the doctor. We cared for everyone else, but we didn't care for ourselves. So we would be the last ones to find out that, oh yeah, you know you have cancer, because you put off caring for everybody else and not caring for yourself. So to answer the question, that when our resources are scarce, what women do is, number one, we first of all, we neglect ourselves until it's too late. And then at some point we begin to lean in for support of those that may have resources that could channel in and help us get through this scarcity of resources. For myself, dealing with my husband, for example, when he was dealing with his heart attack, and trying to find a caregiver that really understood his elements and what he was dealing with, and really cared about the fact that what he had just gone through, and giving him the proper medical care was my challenge. You know, not that the resources were scarce, it was just the care, the general care for particularly African Americans was that's the thing that was scarce. You know, there was no concern or no urgency to get him to the next level. You had a heart attack. There was no one stepping in saying, "Oh, you need to go to cardiac rehab." Didn't know what cardiac rehab was. They never mentioned that. So that was a concern of mine when, being a woman, a caregiver for my husband, and not being able to get the proper care that he needed at that time, to make sure that he had the quality of life that he had prior to the heart attack. So what we do as women, hey, we join in groups to try to get the care that we need. We hope and we reach out for others, but at the end of the day, we trust God, because we know, even though the community, I mean, the care that we need is not coming from the resources in which we engage with, we know who is the healer at the end of the day, and who is our waymaker, and who is going to find a way to get us through that challenging time in which we're dealing with an illness. So
Wow.
there is an understanding that no one person is going to carry that load, but you have to be that person that reach out and be concerned about someone that is carrying that load. You know, we can't just lean in and say that, hey, it's just me, when it's others that are still dealing with that same very thing. Because honestly, the resources out there are scarce, but another thing, to take it at another level, the care is scarce. The love, the nurturing, the that bedside doctoring, that's missing now. You know, we just don't have that like we used to back in the day.
Yeah.
So who ends up caring for the woman?
Come on, Miss Ruthie. So, Ebony, I know you were part of that journey, and so I'm curious to hear from your perspective. Like, how did you see your mom organizing herself and everything else going on during that time when your dad was ill? What's your perspective?
Um, I saw my mom do what she just said. She put my dad first.
Yeah.
She literally put, my dad first, and not knowing what she, had battled with before, years before that, and you still have to take care of yourself, like, so making sure that you're okay. But I saw her, schedule these doctor visits, use these big fancy words that I'm trying to figure out what they mean, because studies show, if you, it's sad to say, wording is everything.
Come on.
Wording is, like, the way that you say something, it does mean a lot, especially in the medical field, or just in, just the community field, business field. Just words mean a lot. But I just seen her, really just make these doctor's appointments back to back. On top of that, juggling being a mom, working, just making sure that my dad had the best of care, but at the same time, still dealing with what she was, making sure that she was still okay because she had, battled, cancer and things like that too. So just trying to keep everything afloat, but I never seen her cry. I can honestly say that. So that was because I'm a crybaby, unfortunately. But I never seen her just, say I can't do it. Never seen her get frustrated with us because of what was going on, because of the doctor visits not going the way that she wanted them to go. I just seen her prioritize and care, but I know exactly where all that strength came from. Like, and that came from God, because man alone does not do that. We're not strong like that.
Yeah. And so March is Women's History Month. And so we're going to flip that and we're going to say it's Women's Her Story Month, right? And so, Ruthie, when you think back on this story, what is it that the healthcare system could have gotten? What could we have done better? How could we have helped you more?
Well, when I think back on it, Dr. Van Hoos, one thing that still, and it still resonates to this day, is the education piece. Um, we were not educated on not only what he had just experienced, but what that's going to look like going forward.
Yeah.
And how can we, prepare ourselves to deal with where we're sitting at now, with the changes that's going to be on taken, with him having to go through different types of therapy, and 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 not only that, but he had a heart attack. He lost oxygen to the brain for 25 minutes. So
Mm-hmm.
we were busy trying to fix the heart, but nobody ever thought about what was going on in his head,
Yeah.
you know, and the fact that he did lose oxygen and what that's going to do, and what whether that impact in his brain. So it wasn't until later on that we started experiencing some of those episodes that we were not educated on. So the biggest thing that stands out to me, like I say, even to this day, is the educational piece. Not walking, just assuming that we should know, but taking the time to say, okay, Miss Evans, Mr. Evans, this is what's happened. This is how we're going to move forward with getting you back to the quality of life, or a quality of life. Maybe not to the same standard, but to a quality of life that you can be able to be comfortable and live a decent, a life with dignity in it. And so we didn't have that. We didn't experience that. It was not until later on that his doctor discovered that, hey, these are people of faith. And this woman is not going to bow down and just and settle with my answers, with my responses, because she digs deeper. And every time she shows back up to an appointment, she has more challenging questions for me. And some of those questions came from sharing his experience with you, and you telling me, ask him this, ask him, did they do these tests, ask him about this. And so, and that's what I began to do. I said, I have to educate myself because they're not going to educate me. And I have to be able to articulate those questions intelligently to understand that, hey, I know what I'm talking about, and you're not going to, pour water down my back and tell me it's raining. So it caused him to understand that, hey, I can't just be passive with these people. I really have to be straightforward and share, a level of understanding about what's going on. And that it was not until then that he began to realize that, hey, this is a different group of people. But what if I did not have that person in my life to say, ask these type of questions? Because there are people out there that don't know what to ask. They don't know how to conduct themselves, and they're leaning in on the medical profession because that's their profession. That's what they know. We don't know this. We don't know the heart. So I'm expecting you to share your knowledge with me, and help me understand in layman terms what's going on here, and how do we move forward, you know, to make sure that he gets better. And then the support for me as the caregiver. What do I need to do to maintain my mental so I don't break down in the process of it all?
Ooh, that was
So yeah.
because because now we're starting to research that. Like we didn't value what we call the dyad experience, right? The patient and the caregiver. Because like Ebony was talking about, right, you came in with your own, you know, wellness needs because of your, past medical history, and
Right.
then also just the caregiver burden. And very seldom do we in healthcare ask questions to the caregiver about what is it that you need, right? How can we make sure that we hold your arms up, right? How can we be your Aaron so that you can do the good work you got to do, right? Um,
Absolutely.
and we've got to do a better job of that. And I know the next question is about kind of what have we lost as a community. And when I think about being a healthcare provider, I think we forget to be empathetic and compassionate, and we forget to see the human in front of us. We're so quickly just thinking about the
Mhm.
diagnoses. Um,
Yes.
I'm curious, Ebony, when you think about healthcare, I know you spend a lot of time in education as well. What do you think that we have lost as a community, Ebony?
Um, basic thing
Mm.
that my mom said is we don't know. We just don't know, and we're not educated. And you have a lot of
Mm.
mothers, and you have a lot of,
Mm.
and when you think about it, you have a lot of grandmothers that are raising their grandkids. So my great if my grandmother was raising my grandkids, she would not know the way to properly care for my kids in today's times. So she's missing that component of being taught. She only know what she knows. So when she takes them to the doctor, she's only telling them the basic, like, and then they're using all these big words. They're getting upset, like they're getting frustrated. But my people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. So we don't have certain knowledge, and so our generation is being destroyed because no one is taking the time to teach. No one is just giving fun facts. Hey, for this medication, the medical term is X, Y, and Z. And it's just, like then you have like a lot of elderly people who are just out here. They're just out here. Like you see a lot of, it's just a lot. And when it comes to community, it's the education component. It's not being offered, it's not being taught. It's just like a people think that you just should automatically know. And I tie
Mhm.
to, education into kids. I can't expect for eternity and Andrea to know how to act at a five-star restaurant if I never taught them.
Mm.
So when they go and Eternity throws the knife across the room, or like if Andrea's sitting there like on her tablet, I can't get mad at her. I have to teach her this is how we act at this particular restaurant. So we need to be taught about different things so we will know how to better, navigate in those particular rooms in those particular spaces.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ebony. So, Miss Ruthie,
That's good.
we are y'all. That's her fruit. So that's Miss Ruthie's fruit. Um. So before we let you have the last mic drop, just want to remind people that in our earlier segments, we talked about the fact that this is colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. It also is the awareness month for kidney cancer and multiple myeloma. And so our health fact, because as both Miss Ruthie and Miss Ebony talked about, is the fact that education is key. So what are some signs and symptoms of kidney cancer? So if you've got blood in your urine that has been around for more than a day or two, then you probably need to talk to somebody. If you've got persistent pain in your lower back, so right there at the bottom of your back, right underneath your last rib, if you've got pain in that area that is not changing with position, it's there at night, it's just kind of there nagging you. That also is going to be a sign to you that you need to be seen by somebody. And then if you've got any lumps in your abdomen, in your kidney area that you can't account for the origin, then once again, make sure you're seen by somebody because that may be a sign or symptom of kidney cancer. So when we talk about symptoms, what we mean by that is that those are the things that you're going to report to your healthcare provider, and signs are the clinical observations, the things that we see or as a provider. Now, for multiple myeloma, the things that you're going to be looking for is if you've got pain that's in your back or in your ribs, right? It's going to feel more like a deep kind of achy pain. If you notice that you have a spontaneous fracture, right, that or multiple fractures, that may be a sign that you need to have some additional workup. And then if you're starting to have frequent infections, all of those things can be signs and symptoms of multiple myeloma. So the month of March is colorectal, kidney, and multiple myeloma awareness recognition in regards to cancer prevention and also control. And so each of these segments, we're going to highlight some type of health fact, especially those health facts that are pertinent to the Black community, because we are disproportionately impacted by heart disease, by strokes, by cancers, and also by accidents and other injuries. But before we get ready to close, we're going to circle back to Mother Ruthie for her wisdom. So, Miss Ruthie, what is it that you want the people to hear from today's segment? If there was one thing that you wanted them to hear, what is it?
So the one thing that that I want to stand out to all women listening in on this podcast is understand that we're all in a place of leadership.
Mm,
I know this month is going to elevate particularly women of leadership with titles and positions and all sorts of things like that. But if you play an active role as a caregiver in somebody's life, if you are someone that's a support system for someone, someone that shows up for anyone, you are actively playing a leadership, it's operate in a leadership position because you're taking that role as a leader in somebody's life, somebody that can't do it for themselves. So when we talk about leadership, most people, they picture titles, platforms, positions of authority, but some of the most powerful leaderships and leaders in our community have never come with a title.
come on.
And it comes from a woman who quietly organizes care, a woman who remembers the details that are overlooked, a woman who shows up not because they were asked to show up, but because they understand that someone needs to show up,
Yeah,
you know, with Mercy Medical. I mean, Mercy Shell. They needed someone to show up. And 9 times out of 10, it was women that showed up and cared and was the nurturers and provided the foods and the meals and prepped the foods. So women who show up not because they were asked, but because they understand are the women that we call collective care operatives,
come
right?
on.
They are the ones who coordinate the rides to the doctors. They set the doctor's visits for the people that can't set them for themselves. They are the ones that cook the meals, that check on the elderly. They watch the children while the mother goes to work. They pray overnight for those that can't stand in the gap for themselves. They advocate for those that feel invisible.
Come on.
Those are the leaders. And guess what? They're women. They're women who are standing in the gap for each other. They're supporting one another. So if you get nothing else out of this cast tonight, understand and realize that we are women dependent on women to show up.
Woo, come on.
That's what I have to say.
And so that was, she summed it up. And so the thing that you can do is show up. And so I'm wondering if Ebony is still on, because we're gonna pivot to Ebony just for a minute. Ebony, is your audio still working?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so why should people listen to your mama? Why does it matter? What have you learned?
In all my in all my 34 years of being on this earth, no, in all, she's a she's a woman of wisdom. You might not like it, but she's a woman of wisdom. What she says is gonna be uncut, raw. Do not ever wear your feelings on your sleeve, please. But just know that it comes from a place of love and care and wisdom. So whatever. So what she said tonight, just get understanding, let it marinate, and just use it whenever it's time for you to use it. But I can speak from my experience that she's my Ruth.
Wow.
So anyone know Billy definitely sum it up.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, we're gonna close it with that. So, Miss Ruthie, Miss Ebony, thank y'all so much for jumping on.
Thank you for having
And Miss
us.
Ruthie, we appreciate you for sharing your wisdom and letting us sit at your feet and learn from you today. We thank you for everything that you do.
Thank
And
you.
Ebony, you are truly blessed to have her as your mother. So, everyone,
Amen.
Hmm.
have a great night, and thank y'all so much for joining the legacy.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
This is 365 Ujima, where community becomes care and care builds our power. Have a good one, everyone. See you next episode.
The lawyers say we have to say this.
The content is for educational and informational purposes only, does not constitute medical advice or a doctor-patient relationship, and is not a substitute for professional diagnosis or treatment. We urge listeners to consult a qualified healthcare provider for any health concerns. The opinions represent those of the individuals and not their organizational affiliations.